Welcome, everybody. This is the fifth quarter. Cali, Mikey D, discussing the hot topics of the NFL. Week 4 is done, man, and what a topsy-turvy week of NFL football for a lot of people who probably had all of their picks as locks. I mean, talk about a jailbreak in performances, and it's just been absolutely nuts. And, of course, I love having my boy Mike representing from Brooklyn to come down and so we could politic a little bit, talk a little NFL football. Holla at me, Mike. What's going on, my brother?
Nothing, man. Just channeling my inner Ocho Cinco tonight, and I'm gonna be a little bit of a show off because my record went up this week while yours went down. So I'm kind of happy right now. I figured I wear the Ocho Cinco to show off a bit.
Yeah, all is right in the world, right? Of course.
8-5, baby. 8-5 all day, every day.
And I think you know what you were somewhere relatively within that vicinity of your record, weren't you?
Yeah. I was 7-5, 7-5 this week, but that was good enough. You don't have to win. You just have to. I mean, you don't have to win big. You just have to win. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, I mean, while the NFL was able to have Ocho Cinco, we have the next best thing. We have Siete Cinco, okay? How about that, Mike? Listen, we got a great show for everybody. We got a few really great topics to discuss. And, of course, my man Mike will help us break down everything regarding fantasy football. And then we'll also give our picks for Week 5 in the NFL. Let's get things kick-started, Mike. First and goal, let's talk about the quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL and where they stand. Now, it's a pretty interesting question that you pose because you initially are looking at it from, who are the best quarterbacks, right now, representing best rookie quarterbacks that are representing. Now, one thing that's interesting when you brought up this question, because I felt like there's really a very small sampling size for us to determine, who out there is really kind of standing out as rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. But I also look into the fact that if you look at the guys that are starting, that the original starting quarterbacks, a lot of these guys, their shelf life was very limited anyway, and I don't think it was a question of, if, but a question of when they would actually be inserted into the starting role and how their performance would dictate whether or not they would have the ability to firm up being the starting quarterback, moving forward. So let's go ahead and talk about this, Mike. First of all, let me ask you, why was it in your best interest in Week 4, quarter way into the season, to now start evaluating the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL?
Well, you know what it is. I wrote an article last year for Shaw Sports over at our boy Warren's website. It was about around this time last year, maybe Week 5 or Week 6, about the injuries to quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? And how many quarterbacks had gone down at that point in the season. It was like something like a quarter of the league was playing their backup quarterback at some point by week like 5 or 6. So I thought about it from that point of view. It's pretty much like that every year. But when you got guys like this class on deck, then it's just magnified, like you said, because it's only a matter of time before everybody's going to start hollering for those people. I mean, let's be honest. People holler for backups in cities, guys like Michael Vick and stuff like that. They holler for them. So why not holler for somebody they've never seen before, who potentially could be the guy of the future if he actually does come in and shake it up a bit?
Yeah, one of the things that I started looking at was, who is out there right now already establishing themselves for us to have this type of conversation. So you look at Blake Bortles from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Derek Carr from the Raiders. You also look at Teddy Bridgewater from the Minnesota Vikings because of what he was able to do last week against the Atlanta Falcons. Austin Davis for the St. Louis Rams, and then you have Manziel and Mettenberger. What is it that's really stood out from you when you looked at these quarterbacks already in the first few weeks of the season? Is it looking like these guys are going to be able to play, or have a solid footing ongoing now at this point in the season if they should be cemented as the starting quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, let's just get these guys out of the way. Manziel hasn't played yet, and Hoyer looks pretty good, so forget about him. And Mettenberger got some mop-up time the other day with Locker out, and Charlie Whitehurst is Locker's backup. He's a scrub. So I wouldn't be surprised if Locker was to miss any significant time because of this injury or any other injury if we saw more of Mettenberger. This seems to be like a lost season for Tennessee because they had high expectations, but so far it hasn't really panned out, and they're real young in the backfield after they let Chris Johnson go. Bishop Sankey and Sean Green haven't done much. They got a stud tight end. So Mettenberger is interesting, but not right now, maybe down the line. I think it really comes down to the big four guys, like you said. I'm sorry, you gonna say something, Cal?
Well, no, I was gonna say that one of the things that I think is a prevalent problem with the Tennessee Titans is the identity factor with this team. And so if you got a guy like Zach Mettenberger, and Zach Mettenberger played in somewhat of a pro-style offense under Les Miles at LSU, and he is a throwing quarterback, there has to be an assurance that Tennessee is going to be committed to throwing the football. They're relying a lot heavily on running the football simply because of the inconsistency with their ability to keep Jake Locker healthy, and then also with the inconsistency of their wide receiver play. So if you got a guy like Zach Mettenberger, I wonder he's going to be more of a casualty because until the identity is there, that they are going to actually start implementing an offense that utilizes his skill set to throw the football downfield, which is one of the things that people have said about him when he got drafted. He's going to be a casualty. I think you're going to always see a limitation of what his upside could potentially be playing in that system in Tennessee.
And that's a good point too. And I kind of think that helped out Johnny Manziel a bit because I think they're less likely to rush Johnny Manziel in, knowing that he doesn't have the passing weapons on that team right now with Gordon out and stuff. I think if Josh Gordon was there, Ben Tate was healthy, and Jordan Cameron was healthy, and I think Hoyer wasn't playing good, we might have saw Manziel already. But I don't think there's a rush because they don't want him to look bad and maybe wash out before he has his full arsenal of weapons. So we'll forget those two guys, and we'll move forward with the rest. I mean, Bridgewater, here's the thing. I think Bridgewater is impressive for the simple fact that he beat Atlanta's ass and then comes back tonight. He's hurt. Minnesota gets shellacked on television by Green Bay. It's Thursday Night Football. It's 42-10 right now in the fourth quarter with no Bridgewater. So that just goes to show you that Bridgewater played a pretty good team last week in Atlanta and beat them, and then they play a pretty much equal team to Atlanta in Green Bay right now so far this season, and they're getting shellacked on national television. So Bridgewater seems to be like a solid dude, and he seems pretty missed right now by that team. Carr, on the other hand, is losing a bad thing type guy because they're 0-4 with him starting, but he's got 4 starts under his belt, while most guys don't. He's starting to look better and better every week, and a lot of people said that he might be the best quarterback in that whole draft. So I find that interesting. Bortles, when he finally got his chance because Henny got a little banged up, he looked just like he did in the preseason, slow and steady, and he's just not working with a whole bunch of talent down there. So, I mean, I'm afraid for his life because their offensive line is so horrible and they have no running game. So that's the one that he really concerns me. And what was the other one? Austin Davis is the interesting one because Austin Davis, even though he was undrafted in 2012 and he was on some practice squads in 2013, he didn't see game time till this year. So technically he is a rookie. And Jeff Fisher just gave him the vote of confidence for the rest of the year. So basically they said, Sean Hill, you're 34 years old, you're a journeyman. We got this young kid. He's played pretty good so far, and we're going to stick with him for a while and see, give him a long leash, so to speak. So he might have the most run and freedom to do something cool. So Austin Davis might be the guy who comes out shining star of this draft class, which is crazy.
Well, one of the things that and I'll just quickly run through those 4 that you mentioned. I'll start in reverse with regards to Austin Davis. I think Austin Davis is a decent quarterback, but I don't know how much confidence Jeff Fisher has. And remember, Jeff Fisher has never had a great working relationship since Steve McNair when it comes to the quarterback position. So I really think that it comes down to the maturity, and I think if Steve Fisher doesn't see that maturity in Austin Davis, that he's going to wind up being kind of a calamity. His name may not grow any bigger than really what he may be able to do for that team. Like, that team altogether needs to be better in order to elevate the name of an Austin Davis. I'm not seeing him standing out as being like a franchise type of quarterback. I think he'll be good, but under Jeff Fisher, I think he'll be mediocre at best. I think Fisher wants a game manager, and that's what they're going to get from Austin Davis. As far as Blake Bortles go, I think Blake Bortles has the benefit of being a part of a very young upstart type of team. And with Blake Bortles, I think if as long as he knows how to throw the football and throw it with accuracy, they're going to be a good football team in a few years. And remember, they don't have Blackman, and I think Blackman is that type of guy that can really give Blake Bortles that face, where they have that tandem thing going and really bring excitement back on there. But the commitment, again, has to be on the fact that they're resting on the shoulders of Blake Bortles to be that guy. If Blake Bortles establishes that relationship with Blackman, that's a good dynamic duo in a division where being a quarterback under the same elk of an Andrew Luck and stuff like that will really accelerate, his maturation process. And I think you do that in the young stages of a Jacksonville Jaguars team that's competitive, just doesn't know how to win yet. Derek Carr, Derek Carr has the most yards of the rookies right now. Part of that is because he's the one that's had the most playing time. I think what it comes down to is whether or not management is truly putting the necessary pieces around him to be a quarterback. He just eerily reminds me of what happened to his brother when he got drafted as the first-round pick for the Houston Texans. You're just putting that kid out there and just like, slaughter to the lambs. So that's my major concern with Derek Carr. Do I think that he could be a great quarterback? I think he could be a great quarterback, but if you're playing for a bad franchise, I don't know how much you can possibly do, for a guy of his set. I don't think that he has that ability. He's not a Matt Ryan type person. So they have to figure out what they're going to do with him. And then Teddy Bridgewater, I agree with you. I think Teddy Bridgewater, of all those guys, to me, has the best maturity given the circumstance and understands the remedy of the situation. He knows that he is going to be the man in Minnesota. I think Mike Zimmer knows that he's going to be the man in Minnesota. And then that was just more evident in what they did last week against Atlanta and how bad, they look against the Green Bay Packers. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just a recipe to, really kind of elevate the level of importance that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be to this franchise. Because if you went from Teddy Bridgewater back to Christian Ponder, and Christian Ponder has just been abysmal in a game against the Green Bay Packers, that right there pretty much says it all. What were you thinking you're going to get from Matt Castle anyway, that Matt Castle hasn't already given you in the last 7 years of football? So Teddy Bridgewater is the man. I think it's his turn to take the reins. If he's healthy, expect the Minnesota Vikings to use him to the utmost, and I really think that he's shown the maturation process to be a quality quarterback. You're tuned to the fifth quarter. Cal Lee, Mikey D discussing the hot NFL topics. As we move on, in second and goal, let's talk about this New York Jets football situation. Everybody is focusing a lot with the whole scenario with Geno Smith, with Rex Ryan. If people watch that football game, the New York Jets just looked absolutely atrocious on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, they were so-so, which is, indicative of just being, the New York Jets. I think this is a team that tends to get overhyped. But against a team like the Detroit Lions, I thought that was a winnable football game because the Detroit Lions did not play good football. That being said, you brought up the question. How much longer do they continue to ride the Rex Ryan roller coaster?
It's not a roller coaster because roller coasters go up and down. And this has been an elevator, baby, straight to the ground. He's gotten progressively worse as a coach and as a team over the last 6 years. I think the best team that they had was the first team, his first year. I think the second year they had more expectations because they made that run to the AFC Championship game. But I really think the first team was a better team. And I just feel like they've gotten progressively worse as they've gone on. But to me, the problem isn't the team or the talent or the quarterback or whoever you want to say. To me, the problem is Rex. Because guess what? He's a defensive coordinator, bro. He's not a head coach. Because a head coach is supposed to be able to control offense and defense. No matter where he came from as an assistant, and we know Rex came from the defensive side of the ball, that shouldn't matter once you become the head ball coach. Once you become the head ball coach, you gotta have input on both. Listen, I think if you took the average fan and pulled them on the side and said, check this box, A or B, what was Bill Belichick when he was a coordinator? An offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator? Most people would say offensive coordinator, right? Meanwhile, you know, he was the defensive coordinator. So Bill Belichick has shown that he can, if he has offensive weapons and he has an offensive team, he needs to become an offensive coach. He cares. He's in Tom Brady's face. He's in Tom Brady's ear. Yeah, they have great offensive coordinators come through there, but guess what? Belichick knows what's going on, and he's all about the draft, and he's all about everything else. And it seems to me like Rex is like, I'm going to be over here with my 11 guys on defense. The rest of you guys, special teams, regular team, whatever you guys figure out, just don't lose us no games. Meanwhile, his defense ain't even that good. His defense ain't even that good. Last week when they cut the lead, the perfect example, they cut the lead to 17-10. They were losing 17-3. They cut the lead to 17-10. And what happens? Defense comes out and gives up a 95-yard touchdown drive. And they go up 24-10. The game's over. If they would have got a stop there, they would have had a chance to tie the game, right? How come nobody calls out the defense? I'm just tired of it, man. He's such a bum as a coach. And yet everybody gives him some sort of credit for his defenses that, what, go 8-8? Losing records, don't make the playoffs? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that Rex Ryan is a decent defensive coordinator. Let me not say that. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think when you look at the landscape of NFL and how the game has been so offensively heavy, if you have Rex Ryan as your defensive coordinator, you're going to be a top 10 defense, and I think that that's a sure
he would be awesome
every single year. Now, at the same time,
he would be awesome. You're right.
At the same time, I do think that a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues, I think, lend itself to what happens in the offseason with Rex Ryan. And I think now it's rearing its ugly head. You know, you brought up the situation with the Detroit Lions. Remember, this situation also came to fruition against the Chicago Bears at home. They had an opportunity to defensively stop the Chicago Bears, give themselves another chance to offensively move the football down the field to tie the game. And then the Bears started matriculating first down after first down. You know, we often gauge how good a defense is because we always keep looking at how bad the touchdowns are. But I tell you something, nothing is worse than needing a simple 3-and-out play, and you cannot get that from a defense that is always being highly regarded as one of the best defenses in the NFL because of the name Rex Ryan. And at some point, like you said, there has to be accountability for the head coach, for the defensive coordinator, which is Rex Ryan, that he is not executing when it counts the most. We have to start giving accountability to the fact that he is not helping his team stay in a position to win football games. You know how your offense is. So if you're going to put it on your shoulders of your defense to make a play, you need to instill upon them they have to step up and make a play. It's as simple as that. The Baltimore Ravens did it. That's how they won a Super Bowl championship. Brian Billick knew what he had offensively. So, yeah, he leaned on the number one weapon that propelled them to where they got to, which is the defense. He put it on Ray Lewis's shoulders. He put it on that defense's shoulders to step up and make plays. And you're not seeing that from the New York Jets. And at some point, if Rex Ryan is not going to teeter on the side of, I'm going to take care of my business offensively and stay on Geno Smith to be a better quarterback, then you need to stay on that defense to step up and be the best defense you could possibly be because you know what you're getting from your team offensively.
But, Cal, that's the funny part. Everybody keeps talking about Rex being, he's a defensive coach, he's defensive-minded. Well, they barely beat the Raiders, right? And they had the Raiders pretty much dead to rights, and they let them get back in the game in the fourth quarter. Then they were up 21-3 against the Packers and lost 31-24. So, yeah, did they stop scoring? Yep, but they also gave up 28-3 was the score. After it was 21-3, the Packers outscored them 28-3. Do the Packers score on Geno Smith? Did the Packers score on Chris Johnson? I'm confused. Did the Packers score on Eric Decker? Or was it on everybody else on that defense, the vaunted defense? And then the game against Chicago, you brought it up. They needed 3 and out to give themselves a chance. Nope. The game against Detroit, they needed 3 and out. Nope. So in my opinion, the offense has been playing better than the defense up until this point because I feel like the offense has no support system. They've had a different offense coordinator every year, and they got a new guy again. And not to mention the fact they're not getting no support and help from their head coach. So my theory is the team being in these games, because they haven't been blown out in the game yet. So my theory is if the team is in these games, they're in these games because the offense is playing above what they're supposed to do, and they're losing the games because the defense isn't playing as magnificent as it's supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying the defense is bad, but you're trying to, people trying to sell me on this defense being a top 5 defense, and I'm saying top 20 defense, yeah, not top 5. I see them somewhere in the 13 to 20 range, and that's why they'll go, 7-9, 6-10, 8-8. That's it.
I definitely see. Off the top of my hand, I can already tell you that there are 10 other teams that I think, through the course of a regular season, will have a better defense than the New York Giants. And unfortunately, this is where
the Jets.
This is where
the Giants.
That's the Giants. I apologize. I meant the Jets. But this is where that whole moniker "numbers never lie." Numbers do lie in this situation. Numbers lie a lot when it comes to what we're perceiving as far as good defenses and bad defenses, right? We talk about, a team like the New Orleans Saints last season, they had like the 5th best defense in the NFL. They pretty much had the same players that they had last year, and look how bad this team is. Some teams
Houston had the best defense in the NFL last year by statistics.
And only had 2 wins. Right. My thing is, and again, I go back to the whole point of where Rex Ryan sits and where he stands. Now, we could apply this because of the mayhem that is going on with John Idzik, with Woody Johnson, and the way that they've handled, the management tree leading to Rex Ryan at this particular juncture. You get rid of Tannenbaum, but you don't get rid of Rex Ryan. And then, there's not full autonomy for Rex Ryan to make decisions when necessary, like pulling Geno Smith after he commits another, 2 or 3 turnovers a game when you're in a position to possibly come back or win the football game. That's a problem. It's a problem when through the course of the offseason, Rex Ryan has not really done or said anything that has instilled any kind of confidence. If you're a person who watches and listens to football, I understand Jets fans want to feel passionate about knowing they got Muhammad Wilkerson and they got Davis, and they got all of these. They got that serious front line. But I want you to listen to the head coach when he talks at times. That is a good indication of whether or not the man has a pulse on this team. And he never has had a pulse on this team after the second stint, that second run to the AFC Championship. Okay? There's an obvious disconnect with where management goes to get its talent and what Rex Ryan wants. But more importantly, Rex Ryan has not done himself any kind of favors at this particular juncture in order to merit the idea that if you're going to be a head coach and you want to have a say about how this team needs to be put together, that you know what you're doing with it. You want to buy into the idea that, when you went and see, well, we need a guy like Mike Vick. Mike Vick's a good guy, blah, 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 blah. But then you don't have the power to pull Geno Smith when he stinks up the joint in order to put a playmaker like Mike Vick in a football game that you could possibly win. That's a problem. It's a problem. I don't care what you tell me. Well, and this is a problem that is going to manifest itself through the rest of this season.
Well, what about this too, Cal? Everybody keeps talking about these AFC Championship games. Dude, it was 4 years ago. Like, drop the dream. I mean, so the Giants could be criticized? They won the Super Bowl 4 years ago. You made it to the championship game and lost twice. And then you've progressively gotten worse every year. So all I'm saying is you're sitting at 1-3. You got 3 tough games in a row coming up. When you get to be 2-5 or 1-6, and your season's over, and you've missed the playoffs for 4 straight years, at what point are you saying, as an owner, and a GM, Rex can do whatever he wants. We're not firing him. Because that's what I'm getting out of it. If you don't fire him, if he has a worse record than he did last year and you still don't make the playoffs and you don't fire him, then you're just saying it don't matter what his wins and losses are. We like him for it because he's a great guy.
Real quick, let me ask you a question. Do you think that Geno Smith should still be the quarterback if, again, he comes out and he stinks up the joint and he puts the Jets again in a position where, you know, they're not in the game?
Yeah. Well, listen, is Geno Smith the best quarterback? No. But is Geno Smith the reason why they've lost these games? No. He might be a contributing factor, but if I had to rank things from 1 to 5 on why they lost, Geno Smith would be behind the defense in 3 of the 4 games. The 3 games they lost, I blame the defense #1 in all 3 games. Because the truth of the matter is, you had a lead in 2 of the 3 games, and in the Detroit game, Geno got you back with a touchdown pass. He got you back within a touchdown, and you just gave up another score. So in my opinion, nobody gives Geno any credit when he plays good, and everybody bags on Geno when the defense plays bad or he plays bad. And not to mention the fact that, guess what? Go to Michael Vick for a game or 2, and then go back to Geno. Buffalo's doing it. They don't like what they're seeing out of E.J. Manuel. He's a number one draft pick last year. They're going to the backup for a game or 2. See how it goes. Kyle Orton. I mean,
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens, you know, in the next couple of weeks, because everybody in the New York, New Jersey areas is calling for Geno's head, and I just don't know how objectively people are looking at this situation, which is the reason why you brought up some excellent points with regard to the fact that a lot of this is not on Geno Smith. You know, do I still buy into Geno Smith being being a starting quarterback? I don't know. I know that he would not be a good. He's never been a good fit for the New York Jets. Okay, I think it was a mistake of them drafting Geno Smith.
Fair enough.
But at the same time, I will say that if Geno Smith was playing elsewhere, was in a system that really caters to what he can do, he would be a much better quarterback. Whether he be a good or great quarterback, I don't know if it's going to matter for a team like the New York Jets, because I think their problems are far more widespread than just at the quarterback position. Let's keep things moving along, Mike, and let's go right down to 3rd and goal. Your boy, Shady McCoy, the real Slim Shady, please stand up. Shady McCoy has been balling. The Philadelphia Eagles, despite losing to the San Francisco 49ers, and, you know, this was a game that we both said, you know, the Eagles would win this football game, and they really had an opportunity to win this game. It wasn't like they walked into Levi Stadium and laid an egg. They had that game for about 3/4 of that football game.
Oh, they laid an egg on offense. They were winning, but they weren't winning because of the offense.
No. But the point that I'm making is that I think the expectations with this Philadelphia Eagles team, nothing about this game against the San Francisco 49ers diminishes what I think this team could be capable of doing. There are going to be games where you're not going to be able to move the foot. Look at the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. I don't care what people tell me. The Denver Broncos is not going to throw up 50 points against every single team in the NFL. I wish people would stop thinking that. There's going to come a point where the team is going to have to play defense. And so that's my point with the Philadelphia Eagles. Just because they threw up 30-plus points the first 3 games doesn't mean that the team is going to come in and shellac them offensively. That's why their defense needed to step up and keep them in a football game. You know what I'm saying? So I say that with in the same breath that I say I expect the 49ers to be a competitive football team. Just because they got all the issues that they got doesn't mean that they're just going to lay down for every team that comes and plays them on their own home turf. But what I do think is great about this Philadelphia Eagles team is that if they are in striking distance, they will scare the holy crap out of you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, listen, the thing with Philly, they had a lot of question marks going into the season, right? Could Nick Foles repeat his season that he had last year? He's having a pretty decent season. He didn't play so great the other day, but if you look at his stats through 4 games, he's doing pretty good. Okay? They added Darren Sproles. Would he still be the old Darren Sproles? Well, we've seen through 4 games. Yep. And the other day when they really needed him, he gave him a punt return, right? When the offense could get nothing going, he got a punt return. So, I mean, yeah, Darren Sproles has been paid off good. Jeremy Maclin has turned himself into a top 5 receiver. I mean, without a doubt in my mind, he's a beast. And Zach Ertz is a nice young tight end who's in that Gronkowski-Graham model of like a big wide receiver who's playing tight end. And the best player out of all these players is supposed to be Shady McCoy, and yet I'm not talking about just against San Francisco. 2 weeks in a row, he has under 25 yards rushing, and both weeks he gets over 20 carries. I mean, dude, you're talking about less than a yard a carry? I mean, listen, I've seen some guys put up some stinkers when they have like 10 or 12 rushes and they rush for 20 yards or something like that. Dude is rushing the ball over 20 times a game, and he hasn't cracked 25 yards for 2 weeks straight. That's concerning, man. That's very, very concerning.
Do you think real quick, Mike, do you think that because of McCoy's ineffectiveness in running the football, or the Eagles' ineffectiveness to run the football, that it has put more pressure on Nick Foles to step up and throw the football more, and thus this is what is now hampering those numbers, those gaudy numbers that he put up last season when he stepped in from Michael Vick, that you're now seeing being an adverse effect to what he's doing this season?
Well, I don't know if it's definitely definitively affecting it, but it's common sense, right? If LaShawn McCoy runs the ball on first down and he gets 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, now you got second and 4. You got a manageable. I could take a shot down the field and still pick up a first down number, right? But if you're getting stopped, losing yards on first down, now it's 2nd and 11. All right, maybe we try to run the ball again. You get 2-3 yards. Now it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Now everybody in the building knows you're passing the ball. Not to mention the fact that all the play action stuff comes off of McCoy and Sproles. So they were like the nastiest play action team ever last year because everybody was trying to key on McCoy. They're not even stacking the box against McCoy, and they're stopping McCoy. Last week, San Francisco was playing them straight up, 7 men in the box, and they were stopping McCoy. So he's not only has to go against these incredible pass defenses, but he's getting no hope. I mean, if you remember the first game that they played when Sproles went buck wild against maybe against Washington week 2, whatever it was. The game against Indianapolis. When Sproles caught the screen pass and he took it like 75 yards. McCoy was playing really good in that game. And so he was opening up all the passing and opening up the dink and dunk to Sproles. So I feel like if you don't get anything out of your running back, all of a sudden you look very, very much like Jacksonville. There's a reason why everybody knows that Jacksonville on 3rd and 12 is going to pass the ball, because they don't got a running back that's going to pick them up 12 yards. And so they play back, and then they stop the play, and everybody's like, well, I don't understand. What don't you understand? The running back has to run the ball. I mean, even if it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, it's got to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust, not 0.8 yards in a cloud of dust. And you're talking about a guy who's supposed to be one of the best in the league.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
He's not like a middle of the pack guy.
Well, I mean, this time around of last season, this was like a top 5, top 10, top 5 rushing team, and I don't know if it's more the scheme. I don't know if his personnel has changed. I think we probably have to look at that a little bit more in depth. But I do think that there comes a point too where sometimes you have too many weapons. And when you have too many weapons, the ball doesn't get to go around people the way that it normally does. Clearly, McCoy is the man, or else he wouldn't have had 20-plus carries in how many games? I think you mentioned like 2 or 3, 3 of the 4 games.
2 straight.
Yeah.
No, he's had 20 carries, I think, in every game. But in the last 2, he's had 20-plus. He's had 20-plus and had only under 25 yards in both games.
Yeah, so there has to be something there. Whether it's the defense is reading something that is negating the offensive scheme that allows them to run that football with the same effectiveness that they were doing maybe in week 1 and what they were doing over the course of last year. But ultimately, it still comes down to McCoy. McCoy has to instill that fear. He has to instill that respect factor to free up Foles' ability to get the ball downfield, to Macklin to get it downfield, to Cooper. I don't know what's going to take place here, but I would hate to see that, McCoy has that kind of season where we have to start questioning, you know how we usually do with boxers, the best pound-for-pound boxer, and then that very fight, after we labeled him the best pound-for-pound boxer, what do they go do? They get lit up. Yeah, exactly. And then after a while, you stop wanting to call this guy the best, stop calling people the best pound-for-pound because it just seems to carry too much load, too much pressure. The moment that we started dubbing McCoy being the best the best all-around running back in the NFL, especially with Adrian Peterson going down, is the moment now where that pressure, being in the limelight, shouldering that kind of burden, I don't know if he's trying too hard or if the Eagles are not possibly setting him up for success the way that they were doing, earlier during the course of this beginning of the season or through last season.
You made a good point, too, though. You made a good point about the scheme. The funny thing is, in the 3 games that they played to start the season, they went 3-0. They were losing all 3 games at halftime. You know that, right?
Yep.
And so, but Chip Kelly's offense is built to play from behind. You know what Chip Kelly's offense isn't built to do? Protect the lead. It's not built to protect the lead because the NFL average for 3 and outs is about 33%. You know what I'm saying? About 1 out of every 3 drives is a 3 and out. So if you have a little bit of a lead, they didn't have a monstrous lead, but they were up like 21-14, I think, against San Francisco. And you get 6 more drives. 2 of those are going to be 3 and outs. You got to put something together to keep that going. They don't have that grinded out offense. So, in my opinion, they got exposed. And I hate to say this, but what do you have to be losing to win a game? I mean, because that's the way it certainly seems.
Well, yeah, you bring up an excellent point. More possessions lead to a higher probability of 3 and outs. Their offense is based on having the ball more times, not necessarily with more clock, because they move on a very quickened pace, and that might come back to bite them. The best teams have a level of balance. You could be a great team offensively. We've seen the year when the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, they have had their moments where they methodically could move the football down the field, and then they had their moments where they needed to speed it up and basically go into like a 2-minute drill through the course of a half just for them to be able to effectively move the football and put points on the board because of what the defense was dictating to them. The Philadelphia Eagles is a team that plays on pace. But what they have to understand is they're going to establish a lead. They have to establish a conviction of grinding certain games out. Because if you continue to keep playing at the pace that they're playing, what you're doing is making yourself susceptible to those 3 and outs, thus putting the pressure back on your defense, which is not a great defense. It's a sustainable defense. It's a defense that may get you a play, very much like the Bears. They're prided off of opportunity. They're not prided off of playing within certain schemes. So once the scheme breaks defensively, then what happens is big plays start mounting up. Once those teams start getting big plays on a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, now they have to play big play for big play, which if their propensity of 3 and out starts piling up, there's no level of consistency and there's no confidence that they're going to get you that first down to that touchdown. And that becomes a problem with a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's something that they definitely have to look for. And I think a lot of it has to be them getting back and figuring out how to put McCoy in a position to maximize the opportunities that he's getting. Not taking anything away from the fact that McCoy is not, that he has taken a step back over the last couple of weeks with his performance. It's on him. But I do think that part of it is predicated on what they're doing with him to get him those opportunities and to make him as effective as he could possibly be. With a high potent offense like that, the Eagles should be putting up 30-something points. But when it's not effective on one side of the ball, they got to figure out a way to open it up for him so he can be able to do those type of things. You're tuned to the 5th quarter. Cal Lee, Mikey D. discussing the hot topics of the NFL. As we move on, first and goal. We're right there at the goal line, baby, making it happen. One of the things that I think is always good is always giving an interim report. You know, when you go into your first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, you have an interim report card. You hate those because you don't want your parents knowing how bad you're doing the first half of the year because you feel like you can always make it up on the second half of the year. In the NFL, coaches always look at quadrants. So there's 4 quadrants. There's your first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and then eventually, you know, the final stretch run to the playoffs. Usually by that time, everything thins out, and you pretty much have an idea of who's in contention and who isn't. So we're going to do our first quarter interim report cards about the best teams in the AFC and the NFC. Mike, I'm going to start with you. In the first quarter of the season, who's best representing for the AFC?
I would have to go with, it's either got to be Cincinnati or Indianapolis. I don't care what Denver's record is. They haven't looked like they looked last year. And, you know, they look vulnerable against Seattle. Indianapolis looked great except for the loss to they lost to Denver on opening night. Hey, that happens. And, you know, they lost to Philly on the comeback. But even though they're 2-2, they look really good the last 2 weeks. And, I mean, Cincinnati, they make you feel like if they get a home game, they're almost as much of a lock as Seattle. So, I don't know. Those 2 teams have looked really good without playing to their best potential yet. So that to me, those are the two teams in the AFC that I'm really watching.
I'm going to agree with you that I think that the Cincinnati Bengals is one of the best teams, but I'm not going to discredit the Denver Broncos. And the reason why I say that is this Denver Broncos team is actually a better team defensively this year than they were last year. Last year, we could honestly say the first quarter of the season, they were giving up as many points as they were putting up. This season, while the offense is still trying to figure itself out, the defense is buying them time. And that's what you want. You know, you want your team that had deficiencies from a year ago and you make all of these personnel changes and moves. You want to see instant success, or, you know, you want to see an instant impact being made from the moves that have been made and the moves that they were made on the defensive side of the football, which I think has helped the Denver Broncos. And look, they only have 1 loss, and that loss is literally to the best team in the NFC, who is arguably the best team in the NFL in the Seattle Seahawks on their home turf. So I got to put the Denver Broncos in that mix as being one of the best teams. And I agree with you that because the Cincinnati Bengals have looked good on both sides of the football, it's very hard to argue, you know, and we're just only talking about the first quarter of the season. Or else if we were talking about this through the core of a whole season, I would have to really look at it. How effective has this team been? But no question, Marvin Lewis has gotten, you know, he's hit it on. He's got these guys playing the right kind of football the first 4 weeks of the season. So I will definitely give you marks on that. And then, I'm going to throw the San Diego Chargers in the mix. You know, they've proven to be a team that can go toe-to-toe with the best teams, whether it be in the AFC or in the NFC. So those are my top 3 teams. Let's go over to the NFC, and you give me who you think stands out, the men amongst boys in the NFC.
Oh, man. NFC is a mess right now, isn't it? I mean, obviously the team that I'm going to go with Seattle because they've looked the best overall so far, but at times they haven't looked so great either. I mean, they lost to San Diego on the road, and then they almost choked away that lead against Denver, which they dominated the whole game, and then they let them take them to overtime. So, I mean, I'm going to take Seattle as the best team, and then coming up behind them, I got some surprising choices. I mean, I'm going to have to say Arizona has looked fantastic to me, considering Carson Palmer hasn't played in 3 weeks. That's amazing to me. I mean, Drew Stanton, he's a third baseman for the Yankees. He's supposed to be a third baseman for the Yankees, isn't he? I mean, I don't understand.
Trust me, the Yankees could have used him this season too, probably.
The fact that he is able to lead them to this kind of record is so impressive to me. I don't know what else to say about it. And to be honest with you, I got to give credit where credit's due, man. The NFC East as a whole minus Washington, pretty good first quarter. I mean, you got Philly and Dallas sitting at 3-1. Can't argue with that. And the Giants, they're about as impressive a 2-2 team you could be. But Green Bay has looked like it's really starting to turn it on. So I'm starting to get worried about Mr. Favre Jr. up there in Lambeau, because they put a whooping on Chicago last week, and they just put a whooping on Minnesota this week. So that might be the dog horse coming up in the back.
I'm gonna pause on putting the Green Bay Packers as one of the top teams, but I think if we have this question come the halfway point of the season, I don't think there's a question that we're going to be talking about the Green Bay Packers as being one of the best teams in the NFC. And I think when you have a healthy Clay Matthews, A.J. Hawk, and Julius Peppers, who, remember now, Julius Peppers lost weight, and they now have him playing.
He got a touchdown tonight.
They have him playing on the end, playing a D end, but also playing some linebacker position. I think him and Don Capers and that relationship is going to rekindle is going to rekindle Julius Peppers' career. Because he was completely obsolete the last couple of seasons with the Chicago Bears. And I think part of that is in fault to how they were using him exclusively as a D end. I've always said that Julius Peppers is one of the most versatile defensive players in the NFL. And sometimes you just got to use that guy and what he gives you. And if he gives you a little of everything, then you get everything. And I think the Green Bay Packers understand that. Where they lack in certain fields, instead of just trying to make him a dominant one-tool player, one-position player, now they got him all over the place, and I think that bodes well for the Packers, and if they'll figure it out through the course of the year. So I'm going to pause on them being the best one. I'm not going to talk about them too much. I agree with you definitely. You got to put the Arizona Cardinals as one of the best teams, because even without their starting quarterback, they have a good backup quarterback, a solid quarterback. They're getting play. Their running game is good. Their playmakers are making plays, and their defense is legit. You can make an argument the Arizona Cardinals defense is better than the San Francisco 49ers defense. It's probably a top 3 defense with the way that they play. They're opportunistic, but they're very solid and very sound. They don't break. They'll bend, but they don't break. And they're explosive. So I'm definitely going to give you that with the Arizona Cardinals. There's no question you got to put the Seattle Seahawks in that conversation. The one knock on them is that they don't win on the road. I don't know if it's going to matter, because if we're talking about the best team in the first quarter of the season, their defense is still a dominant defense. And if their offense is on point, they're one of the best teams well put together, and they're great on special teams. So all around, I still put the Seattle Seahawks as one of the top dogs. You can make an argument for the Philadelphia Eagles, and you could probably even make an argument to some level or degree with the Detroit Lions. I'm not ready to throw the Dallas Cowboys, who have obviously a good record of 3-1 in there. I'm definitely not ready to throw the San Francisco 49ers or the Atlanta Falcons and things of that nature. So I mean, really the best teams to me in the first quarter season, Atlanta Falcons. I'm sorry, not Atlanta Falcons, but the best teams, the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. It'd be very interesting to see though. These next 4 games, where the powerhouse teams are going to come from. Because notice we just mentioned 2 teams, and they're both from the NFC West. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If the San Francisco 49ers use this win against the Philadelphia Eagles as a means to catapult themselves, plus the addition of some of the players that they're going to get by the halfway mark of the season, we could be talking about 3 teams being the top 3 teams in the NFC, and they're all coming from out of the NFC West.
We've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen plenty of times. So, I mean, both wild cards can easily come out of the same division, a la Denver, Kansas City, and San Diego, all making the playoffs last year.
Most definitely. You're tuned to the 5th quarter. Cal Lee, Mikey D, discussing the hot topics of the NFL. Just finished giving you our take on who the best teams in the AFC and the NFC are in the first quarter part of the season. Let's go ahead and switch gears, Mike. Talk some fantasy football. What is it that you want people to now take into effect as we are now 4 weeks into the season? We're now into week 5. We're more than halfway by terms of fantasy football, because obviously the schedules operate differently to the scheduling of how you play out your records and then also leading into the playoffs. So what's the important things that people need to start taking from in week 5?
Well, I mean, first of all, you need to look at your team because this is a good time to make moves. Weeks 4 through 8 are a good time to make moves because while you have a good handle, you might be overreacting to how bad your team's been playing, how good your team's been playing, so's everybody else. And so you might be able to steal something from somebody because they're in the middle of a little bit of an overreaction. I've been getting offers like crazy from LaShawn McCoy, and I won't budge on LaShawn McCoy because, in my opinion, he's going to eventually have some good games, right? So if he's going to play 16 games, as a fantasy running back, I say he's going to have 10 really good games, 2 or 3 mediocre games, and 2 or 3 bad games. So if I use that formula going into the season at week 1, why would I jump ship in week 4? Maybe I've seen his 2 bad games. You know what I'm saying? So if you have a stud like that, you got to get studs in return, or else don't be the guy who panics. Prey on the guy in your league who panics, because this is definitely the time for panic. And week 8 might be a little too late because people won't make trades at that point because they know what they got or they know what you got, and it's a lot easier to pull one over on somebody at that point.
All right, so who do you have as your fantasy freaks of the week?
Oh, man. Well, talk about shady this whole show. This is a good comeback game for him. I mean, they're playing St. Louis, and St. Louis defense hasn't looked great, and they had a 3-touchdown lead over the Dallas last week, and they let Dallas get back in the game. And how did Dallas do it? To Marco Murray. So I like Shady McCoy to have a big breakout game. Another guy you might want to look out for is a guy by the name of Darrin Reaves. Now, I don't know if you know who Darrin Reaves is. I certainly didn't before this week. But Darrin Reaves might be the starting running back for the Carolina Panthers this week because they have, count them, 4 running backs on the injured list. Tolbert's out for a long time. Stewart and Williams have been, hit or miss. They keep missing week in, week out. And Fozzie Whitaker got banged up with a concussion last week, who I can't even believe I just said Fozzie Whitaker's name on the show. So Darrin Reaves is a nice young running back who they might like. You never know. If Carolina could get things going with all those guys being as unhealthy as they've been, if he shows something, he might be the next plug-and-play guy.
All right. And then what we got for our fantasy football?
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. There's some stinkers sitting out there, Cal. There's some stinkers sitting out there waiting to ruin somebody's week.
You could put any offensive player from the Minnesota Vikings on there if you want.
Well, I mean, it's a sin, too, because last week they had such great fantasy numbers. Asiata and oh, man, they look great. But here's the thing. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Don't rush when you have to get a guy back from injury, okay? Don't rush. Because when you get a guy like Ben Tate who's coming back from missing 3-4 weeks, don't rush him, man. Just let it come. Let it come and it'll come. But as far as I'm concerned, the guy I'm truly worried about the most in this whole situation might be Frank Gore. Okay? Because Frank Gore actually had a good game last week. And that's going to get people all high on Frank Gore again. And I got news for you. Frank Gore, I love him. He's from the U. Represent. Solid NFL career. That's my boy. But he is not a running back number 1 anymore. He's not a running back number 1 anymore. So just because he had a good game last week against Philadelphia, A, it was Philadelphia. B, almost all of his points came from a 55-yard catch he caught on a busted play that Cap threw a miracle pass across the field to him and hit him in stride, and he took it 55 yards. So I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, just don't get too crazy with Frank Gore. Oh, and just one more update. Joik Bell from Detroit, of that 2-headed running back monster, is probably going to miss the game with a concussion. So I really like Reggie Bush this week to have bigger numbers than usual, and unfortunately Joik Bell might miss the game, and who knows how much with the concussion protocol the way it is.
All right, well, there you have it, the fantasy football talk. Well, man, Mikey D giving us what we need to know, our fantasy freaks of the week and our fantasy faux pas. Hey, Mike, man, let's make sure we got people to let us know where we're at. Obviously, you can always get at me at GameFaceLee on the Twitter side. And how about yourself, my man?
Yeah, you get me on Twitter at ccd_blog. You know, I always jump on the Twitter, like to see what people are talking about, especially you and Mr. Shaw and all the rest of you guys over there. Shaw Sport Gang represent.
Yeah, we like to jabber jaw a little bit, just a little bit. All right, so without further ado, you made mention about how abysmal my record was this week, and you've narrowed the gap down. I think you picked up 3 games on me.
I sure did.
Last week's picks. So it's with good measure. It's with good measure. I took some. I rolled the dice on a few.
One of them was on the game I told you I was going to pick up a game on too. Jets versus Detroit.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, don't think that anything that I was saying animosity was because of that game. It just lent for me to feel that way because of that game. That's all.
Well, I had the same kind of week the week before. When I stunk up the joint, I went 6-10 week 1, and you blew me out the water. So I mean, this is the way it goes, man. These games ain't easy. If they were, we'd be rich because we'd be picking all the winners.
No doubt. So let's go ahead and knock out the week 5 picks this week. And we'll start with the Buffalo Bills heading out to Ford Field to take on the Detroit Lions. Who you got, Mike?
I'm going to take – why is Buffalo always first? I hate
circles the wagons better than them, baby.
Yeah, I got to take Detroit because I don't know what Kyle Orton's going to do. That's a tough first game as a starter. To have to go against Donkey Kong and Nick Farley, nah, man, they're gonna try to knock that beard right off his head. I'll take Detroit.
Yeah, I'm taking the Detroit Lions. I think at home they're a really good football team, and I think you can see how effective this team is now becoming without a 100% Calvin Johnson. You know, Megatron looked like Starscream out there on the football field, and Stafford's starting to rely on Golden Tate. Golden Tate's starting to look like Shockwave. And so when that combination starts happening, we could be talking about a whole new other type of transformer going on. So is that new one Age of Extinction? That's probably what's going to happen in Detroit when the Bills arrive to town. So I'm taking the Lions on that one. All right, let's go with the Cleveland Browns taking on the Tennessee Titans. How are you feeling about those Browns, man?
I feel real good about them. I'll take Cleveland.
You taking Cleveland?
Coming off the bye.
This is a tough one because as mediocre as Tennessee can be, there are times where they have these moments of being or looking like, one-hit wonders. Could this be their one-hit wonder game? And again, this is another situation with the Cleveland Browns and an opportunity for them to maximize being in a division where they can hang with the rest of everyone, and then they lose a game that they're not supposed to be losing. With that being said, I'm going to take the Titans on this one. I don't know why, but I just feel like the Browns still have not figured out how to win the games that they're supposed to win. And usually after the first quarter of the season is when it begins for them, where they just disappoint you. This could be that game where they get disappointed, so I'm leaning on the Tennessee Titans to figure out a way to win that game. Let's go with the Houston Texans taking on the Dallas Cowboys. I actually like this football game, but I'm gonna let you give your pick first. I'll tell you why I like this football game.
Is it Jerry World?
Is that Jerry's World?
I'll take Houston.
So this is why I like this football game, because once and for all, I really want to see how good this Dallas Cowboys team really is. Usually we get to see the smoke and mirrors thing like 5-6 weeks into the season, and then the rest of the NFC East stinks up the joint. So it's just like we have nothing but good to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. They should win the division. They should run away with the division. I'm still not sold on the Cowboys. And I don't know if I'll ever be sold on the Cowboys. And I think playing against a team like the Houston Texans with the kilowatt on the field is a great measurement of just how much hype we should be giving this football team. So with that being said, I'm running with you on this one. I'm going to take the Houston Texans because I don't know if this Dallas Cowboys team has got the gumption Is what does my man Nick Foley say? The testicular fortitude to run with guys that like to get physical with them. I don't see that yet with this Cowboys team. And being down 21 points to a good defense against the St. Louis Rams that just didn't know how to finish the deal, I can only imagine what happens if they allow J.J. Watt to run wild on them. So I'm going to take the Texans on this one. Tampa Bay Bucks heading out to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Good remedy game for them Saints?
Yeah, Drew Brees wins in the Dome, and the Bucks have looked bad. Mike Evans is going to be out for a few weeks, so that's just one less weapon, and they haven't looked good so far. So, yeah, I'll take New Orleans. I have to. They got to get that record right.
Yeah, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints. They're playing at home. I'm glad Tampa Bay got that one win, so that now when we talk about them being 1-4, we're not making them look like the 76 Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah.
So I'm glad at least they got one win, because I wouldn't have picked them to win this game even if they had the Tampa Bay Bucks that won the damn Super Bowl.
They should bring back they got to bring back the creamsicle uniforms and they'll win.
Probably. Though I will say though that the XFL uniforms was a good indication of what kind of season this team was going to have.
He hated me.
He hate me, exactly. one year and they're done. All right, the St. Louis Rams head out to Philly to take on the Eagles. Do you think the Eagles bounce back against a really good Rams defense?
I think they're supposed to be a really good Rams defense. I haven't seen that yet. Rookie quarterback in Philadelphia getting heckled. Philly faithful is going to be hyped for this game because they want to see LaShawn McCoy have a big game and shut everybody up. So I think they're going to be extra nasty that day and extra cheerful when McCoy goes buck wild. I'll take the Eagles.
Yeah, this is a push week for us, man, because I'm going to agree with you. I think the Eagles bounce back and they win this game against the St. Louis Rams. I think that they're upset that they didn't win that game against the San Francisco 49ers. I think they're going to take their angst out and their anger and frustration against the St. Louis Rams. Kansas City Chiefs, impressive win against the New England Patriots. Now they head out to San Francisco to take on Harbaugh and the 49ers.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
You like the Chiefs in this one. I think that this is the week that the 49ers really establish if that place is considered home field advantage. While I'm impressed with what they did against New England, I was not overly impressed. And I wonder if the physicality of the 49ers defense is going to have an effect on Alex Smith and that Chiefs offense on a short week. So I'm going to pick the 49ers in this one. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New England Patriots in New England. Talk about a litmus test of how good this Bengals team should be.
Yeah, man, this is a tough one. Whew.
You want to buy it? You want to pass on that one?
Man, I'm taking.
I thought you were wearing the Ocho Cinco with confidence. What happened?
I wore it to make fun of you. I didn't wear it to root for the Bengals. I mean, listen, I feel like, all right, I got to take Cincinnati because they're the better team so far. But no shock at all in my mind. If the Patriots win by like 40, I wouldn't be surprised.
Stephen A. Smith has been calling for Marvin Lewis's head on a chopping block to no longer be the head coach of Cincinnati. These are signature games in the regular season to really make people a believer of whether or not the Cincinnati Bengals team is for real. You got to win these games. And it's not just about the fact that it's in Foxborough. It's the fact that it's the New England Patriots, because at the end of the day, you're still going to be talking about the New England Patriots if they make it into the playoffs as a team possibly going to the Super Bowl, because that's all it takes, because the division that they play in suck. So I think the Bengals have to look at it from a different perspective. They need respect. They need validation. The record that they have, they got to beat them. And I think that to me, it has to not come down to the playmakers. It has to be to the play calling. Marvin Lewis has to get these guys ready to play this game. They cannot look at this as just a blip on the schedule. They lose, ho-hum. We still have to take care of business in our own division. Win the game, win the respect. With that being said, I'm taking the Patriots. I think that Belichick is mad enough, Brady is mad enough, and this is a good setup game to wake the Patriots up and make them realize that there is still 12 more games of football that have to be played, basically. So I think this is the game where they let off shots against the Cincinnati Bengals, and then we now start questioning whether they are good or not.
Wait, hold on. You just said they're gonna let off shots. Aaron Hernandez come back this week? Wait, what? Too soon? It's too soon for Aaron Hernandez joke on the fifth quarter?
A little too soon for that one. A little too soon.
Oh boy.
That could have been a good one to start for Plea the Fifth.
Damn, man.
Baltimore Ravens take on the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. Who you got?
I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts to have franchise revenge on the Baltimore team for leaving Baltimore years ago. They're going to take it out on the poor Ravens for them leaving at night from when they were the Baltimore Colts and they fled town. So I'm gonna get some. We're gonna get some franchise revenge for Mr. Luck.
All right, I take the Colts in this one. As much as I think that the Ravens are a little bit better than they were last year, and because they have Steve Smith, they're a good team. But I think that the Colts, especially how impressive they've looked offensively the last couple of weeks, I think that they again are going to turn it up a notch.
Shout out to Mr. Steve Smith. He is balling.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I'm sure he's put up two M fingers to the haters out there that thought his game is diminished. Chicago Bears head to Carolina to take on the Panthers.
Ooh, I'm going to go with Chicago because I think the guy that I went to high school with might be starting at running back for the Carolina Panthers this week. And I cannot pick against a team with no running back. I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm going to deal with the Bears, but I'm going to do it reluctantly because, again, what kills me is the fact that I don't know what defense is going to be on that football field. One minute they look decent enough that they can hold the game together, and then when they start forcing Cutler to have to start being clutchler, and then it becomes a problem. So if the Bears establish an early lead, they win it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina, pretty much puts a hammer to my heart again. Because that's what the Bears do. They just, they find ways to just basically kill me. Pittsburgh out in Jacks taking on the Jags. Steelers.
I like the Steelers so much in this game. I made them my pick in the suicide pool.
Oh, very nice, very nice. I'm taking the Steelers on this one as well.
They're going to smoke the Jaguars. See what I did there?
Smoke the Jaguars. Oh, you're on point today, boy. You're so on point. Atlanta Falcons head to New York to take on the Giants.
Of all the teams I did not want to see as a Giant fan. Oh, wait, no, this is the team I want to see because they lost to Minnesota last week on the road. Oh, man, I'll take the Giants, baby. Big Blue is back.
I like the Giants in this one. I think that they have played some really good football, and they're showing signs that chemistry is starting to come together really well. We could be talking about this one being the better, being a top 5 NFC team at the halfway point of the season, and this is a good way for them to be able to do that by, beating on a team that really is a good football team, but still has not played up to the level of expectations. I think people had already had them in the preseason. So I'm taking the Giants. The Arizona Cardinals take on the Denver Broncos. This is a good matchup.
Where is it?
In Denver, Mile High.
I am going to pick Arizona because Denver has to lose a game at home at some point. So this might be the one.
I'm going to take the Denver Broncos because I'm more confident in Peyton Manning than I am in Drew Stanton. It's not that I don't think that the Cardinals are going to have are not going to be competitive, and I would probably agree with you if I saw signs of the Denver Broncos not being a good football team. But this Denver Broncos team is a good defensive football team, and I think that lends well with a team that offensively is good but not great in Arizona. I think that Denver might have a little bit more opportunity on a guy like Drew Stanton. So I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos at Mile High. But if they were playing in Arizona, I would have probably picked the Arizona Cardinals, no question. New York Jets head out to San Diego to take the Chargers.
Superchargers.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers on this one, man. Phillip Rivers is just, he's such a fierce guy. I don't like him, but I respect him. And he's not going to let Geno and the boys come into their house and house him. So I'm taking the Chargers on that one.
What do you got against bolo ties, bro?
Huh?
What do you got against bolo ties? Bolo ties are cool, bro. Why do you hate Phillip Rivers for?
Cry me a river. That's
You
all I'm
love
gonna
that
say.
time, man. That's what I want for Christmas.
Cry me a river. That's all I'm gonna say. Cry me a river. All right, Monday Night Football matchup: Hawks versus the Redskins. I think we're gonna have to probably stop mentioning that name, the Washington Redskins.
No,
Let's just say
not.
the Seattle Seahawks against the Washington football team.
Well, in my opinion, they don't deserve to be called the Redskins because the Redskins are a classy organization that won some Super Bowls. This is the Washington Red River Redskins from down the block. That's the high school team, I think, because they got too many injuries and not enough subs. So I'm taking Seattle to fly big over RFK, baby.
I like the Seahawks in this one, but I don't think it's going to be as lopsided a loss to the Redskins. I think that they're going to be competitive, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins actually has a bounce back game, against that team. I'm just saying they're on the road. They are on the road.
Don't let Richard Sherman.
But the Seattle Seahawks on the road is not as effectively good as they are at home. That doesn't mean that they can't dominate. I'm just saying I would not be surprised if I saw that this Redskins team play competitive football. Right. I'm still taking the Seahawks, but I'm not looking at it as like a blowout. This ain't going to be like what it looked like when the Falcons played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just don't see that kind of football game.
Just do me a favor. Don't put that on Twitter, man, because I don't want Richard Sherman getting at you and then calling us out on Umberto.
Maybe I do want Richard Sherman to get at me. Hey, you don't think that'll increase our credibility on this show?
Yeah, but I'm just saying he's gonna have you on the beef jerky commercial talking about he's quenching his thirst and surviving his hunger, eating all predictions. I don't want that association, Cal. He's a Twitter machine. His tweet deck is on point. He hears everything. His tweet deck game is on point.
Well, who said it was anything about him?
I'm just saying.
I'm talking about the other 10 members on that field might get lit up. I'm just saying.
All right, well, you heard that right here, Rich. We ain't talking about you, Rich. We don't want no problems on the Twitter.
Awesome show this week, Mikey, man. Some really good picks, man. I think we're gonna see some interesting results.
Oh, for the season, you 25-17. I am 22-20. So I'm creeping.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have had twice as many losses last week as I did as I do win. So
here I come.
Ah, lovely. So for the fifth quarter, Cali, my man Mikey D. Be sure to check us out again on the Twitter side at GameFaceLee and get at my man Mikey D at ccd_blog. Do the doggone thing, man. Let's talk some football. We appreciate you guys. You guys have a great week. Until next time.
Peace.